Hello, this is Dr. Mia Luth. It is Wednesday, July 15th at approximately 1:20 a.m. or 1:20 p.m. Eastern Time, New York, USA. And I'm in bed again. I got my neck pillow. I have a lot of pillows just because I try to put myself in so that I'm not moving around too much, because I have a sleep disorder. It's part of a neurological disorder, so I'm tossing and turning a lot, and sometimes I even get injured while sleeping, which is boo. You know what I'm saying? So I just decided, I had some hockey thoughts kind of filing in today. Ice hockey. My ESPN ticker popped up, and Mr. Steve Yzerman apparently stepped down as the general manager from the Red Wings. Okay. So there's that. I can't use my X account, former Twitter. It got suspended because somebody hacked my account, and X.com won't even answer me now. Right. And so I used X to, kind of keep track of hockey goings-ons. I mean, I appreciate it, because then I could, do the, used to be called TweetDeck, X Pro, whatever it's called now. Anyway, there's nothing I can do about that. I mean, I don't feel like it. Well, it's just another thing. Here you go. Here you go, God. Yeah, I want to sue them too. Right. I mean, we have rights in the United States of America that can't really be fucked with too much. And right, okay, you can't. Right. I mean, trying to tear down the U.S. Constitution is no. Not even. Don't be silly. Wow, you guys. Well, there's a waste of time and energy right there. Anyway, so hockey thoughts. Hanging out with some of the more outspoken hockey people, fans online with the Winnipeg Jets this last season, and reading some of the press and kind of getting a feel for certain things, and right, I mean, I have been for a while, but this year just was able to, even if I was laying down or not feeling so well, I could still kind of participate and kind of get through some things and look at certain things. So, right, I just, I've been an NHL fan for so long that, for me, it's just okay, well, it's not an unmitigated disaster. Okay? The Jets are not an unmitigated disaster. Okay, there are teams that have had situations that were much more difficult and much, right, I mean, it's not a huge big mess to clean up or anything. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say is, GMs can only do what GMs can do. Okay, so you guys don't know what happens in the GM's office or behind the scenes, right? I mean, some GMs, they may be trying and to get certain kind of player, but there are times when it's well, if the other team's not willing to either communicate or deal or whatever, there's not much. Okay, they can't just pick whoever they want, do whatever they want, and they have to keep track of the salary and the salary cap. And when you're moving, guys from the AHL up, and it changes Okay, like how the salary cap gets arranged, there are only a certain amount of spots allowed. You can't have, well, I think it's 23, yes, the roster spots. Right? There's restrictions that are put in place by the National Hockey League, and there's nothing that GMs can do about that. I mean, maybe occasionally they say, well, maybe we can, but it's the same for every single team. Alright, so, there's some seeming to get antsy and why don't they pull it? I'm like, because there's no room to do it. There's no open roster spot. Okay? If there's no open roster spot, it doesn't matter how many times you say it, or type it, or think it. It doesn't change a damn thing. So be a fan that's willing to listen and learn and understand the game and the procedures and blah 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 better, because there's nothing a GM can do about certain things. I mean, it's the same for every single franchise. They have to have a certain amount. Okay, they can't put even one extra guy on the roster unless there's an IR spot, unless somebody goes on waivers or somebody gets traded. And a trade means you're bringing somebody in, so it's not necessarily opening a spot. Alright, so you understand? All franchises have the situation where players do in fact play injured sometimes. Okay? It's just common in the NHL. They're, injuries that aren't really affecting their game too much. Right? It just happens. Alright, so, those fans who were thinking that, it was just happening with the NHL Jets, and they didn't understand, well, why would you let a player injure? But because the player wants to play, and if the player can show it to practice, and if the player can play, even at a B+ game, that player's going to play, man. Pulling up an AHLer, right? If you were to, put the AHLer into the shoes of an NHLer, then that would be a C- game. Because there's all sorts of stuff you can really only understand once you're in the NHL, once you start picking up stuff, right? So it's not the club who decide that, like, the entirety, all the players in the NHL will play with some minor injuries. So some were aiming stuff at the club, like, why would the GM let a guy play? Because this is the National Hockey League, and this is how it happens in the National Hockey League. Okay, so start learning more about the National Hockey League and the restrictions. Like, there's just the way, and I'm trying to say there's only a certain amount of spots. So you can't bust the salary cap. You gotta pay attention to everybody's, negotiated contracts. There's a lot that goes into it. Sometimes, when certain players decide they're not interested in going to certain clubs, well, that's fine. Okay, but putting everybody on waivers is not smart hockey, and that would ruin a franchise. So sorry to be the one to say it out loud, but some fans, it's like, listen, if you're gonna jump on the roller coaster every year, okay, there's a way for you to process and understand the way the National Hockey League works and some of the things that are standard throughout the National Hockey League. Just like some players will play with injuries. You know, the GM's office has to be 100% sure they're not, maneuvering people from AHL to NHL or whatever so that it goes higher than the salary cap. So sometimes, okay, that's why a decision as to who gets pulled and who doesn't and blah blah blah. Alright? So a coach might be able to say, hey, we need to pull a guy up, got a guy in IR. And it might say, well, it'd be great if we could get this guy up from the AHL. Okay, but that may not be a possibility for certain reasons or another. Okay? So you can actually enjoy the ice hockey a bit more, and you don't have to get on one of those roller coasters that raises you up real high and scares the shit out of you and drops you and you bounce around, in the back end you're getting all beat up back there already. I try to say, it's just get on the teacups. It's a bit more of a gentle ride. Because once you understand these things, it's like, well, hi, this is the National Hockey League. And all of that happens. And you can't put half your fucking team on waivers in the National Hockey League unless you plan on losing your franchise. Truth. That's truth. That's not smart hockey, for one thing. But if you plan on losing your franchise, then you go ahead and put half your fucking team on waivers. Right? So what I'm trying to say is maybe, general statements and press and broadcasters having to do with the Winnipeg Jets spend, a little more time saying, these guys in the NHL, this is how this works, waivers, instead of, showing everybody how hockey smart you claim to be. How about everybody spend a little more time, trying to educate so that I'm sure if a GM, I'm sure there's GMs I wish I could. But they can't. Because there's rules, there's regulations, there's salary cap, there's, player contracts, there's all kinds of stuff that goes into this. That none of you can control. So let go. Okay? It doesn't matter how many times some of you typed out or thought or, came on Winnipeg Sports Talk or, went on, one of the other ones or, right, or Kenny or Randy, just put them on waivers, But, some of you were suggesting then put 5 NHL players on waivers. And that, my friends, might tank your whole fucking team. There's probably no possible way to do it, to be honest with you. But that would be one of the dumbest blunders any NHL team could possibly ever have done. You understand? I mean, no. Right? Okay. The club does know better than a lot of all of you. The GM's office has, a bunch of facets to it. Go look at the organizational chart, and all the franchises on their NHL website do have, that on their website. And if you look at the organizational chart, right, you'll see, like hockey, I've said certain, right. So the GM is just like general manager over all, but there's other managers, and then there's scouts, and then there's these guys over here who do this and that and the other. So your understanding of the game is lacking just straight understanding of the National Hockey League itself and how a franchise has to be run according to the NHL. And the things that happen in the NHL, I mean, it just will be the case. There will be players who play injured. Okay? So, for fans, I know. It's not like you don't get it. But I am saying that learning more about the rules, learning more about what's possible, would kind of help you stay a little, so you're not on that horrible roller coaster that you end up throwing up at the end, like, you don't need that. You can actually help your own selves have a better fan experience too by understanding, hey, the GM has to sign off on any movement between the AHL and the NHL, because yes, the GM's office is under that is like keeping track of everybody's salaries and so on and so forth. And so and the coaches, like the head coach, concentrates on one side, and the assistant coaches concentrate on some other things, right? And the game is more organic than just X's and O's. We're not looking at inanimate X's and O's. You understand? We're looking at, people who play ice hockey to a certain level. You make split decisions constantly, and in the NHL, it's not just a second. Like when it comes to goaltending and some shots going off into the, like it's half a second. It's a millisecond that could make the difference. Alright? And there's a difference between skating fast and playing ice hockey fast on your skates. Okay? And not everybody's got to be huge and fast. Nobody's got to be like, you know what I'm saying? You may have some really quick skaters, but it's how well they play with the puck. Can they make plays quickly? Can they read each other quickly? Can they react within a millisecond? How well do they have ice vision? Okay, ice vision comes with time in the NHL. Like some might have really, like some may have a better understanding of it when they get to the NHL. But all this stuff has to be honed. Like real actual game in the National Hockey League, real actually game out in the National Hockey League. So just sometimes take a deep breath, and there are, it's important to understand the National Hockey League itself and the organizational chart. There's a lot that goes into decisions that GMs make. I mean, they rely on other people, scouts, they sure do. And like I said, a coach, somebody goes on the IR, injured reserve, right? So coach might mention to the to GM's office, if we can get this guy up, that'd be great. But ultimately, it's the GM's office that has to track all of those contracts and track all that money expenditure. Okay? So, knowing that, I mean, some of you were just constantly just, why don't we let the young guys play? Like, so, no. That wouldn't be good for them, and it wouldn't be good for it wouldn't be good for the guys on the Moose, and it wouldn't be good for the guys on the Jets. And oftentimes when it comes to, I'll take an experienced NHL veteran on ice with a B+ game rather than an AHL guy who's barely spent any time or none on NHL ice and just gelling in the locker room and just knowing positioning and just knowing the game, being able to read the game. I would take an injured NHLer rather than a not injured AHLer any day, any game, all season long. They know their games really well. So even if they're injured, they know, okay, well, yeah, I'm still good, B+. I got a solid B+ game. I might even be able to try for A-, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I should be on ice. So, like they're also, to me, I spent a lot of time, I watch other hockey games. I don't just watch Jets games. If I can, I will watch whatever hockey game I can watch. NHL. And if I can watch it, sometimes the AHL games are on but I only have so many hours in a day. So, I do my best concentrate on, game in and game out once the season starts. And it's why I can, stay much more positive, because I just know, you're all getting upset because this is how the actual NHL is. And that's not the Jets' fault. That's not Chevy's fault. That's not the coaching staff's fault. That's not the captain's fault. That's not the goalie's fault. Okay? But there seems to be a lot of press, broadcasters, a lot of broadcasters, and a lot of press, and a lot of people talking about Winnipeg Jets ice hockey for such a small market, which small market clubs can still do very well in today's NHL. It wasn't like that like 30 years ago, people. Which is another reason. Parity. They have just as much of a chance as, a market like the Caps. Okay? Also, I'd like to bring your attention to the name Martin St. Louis. Number 26. Used to play for Tampa Bay Lightning. He's now the coach there, the Habs, the Happy No. Right. Yeah. He's a Hall of Famer and, an NHL superstar. And guess what? He came in undrafted So all you're trying to say, well, I don't know how, like, maybe there will be somebody undrafted comes up and, gets on the Jets. Maybe. You never know. So, for those of you who don't understand the national, but some of it seems to be some of the broadcasters, and some of it seems to be some of the press. And I don't need a penis to understand the NHL very, 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 very well, or this game, or any other kind of thing. And I've been listening to the males of ice hockey since I figured out that I could get AM in the middle of the night games on AM radio when I was like 9-10 years old, if I stood in a certain part of the house on my little transistor radio. So for fans, it's just like, okay, you're some of you need a little help relaxing. Okay. Like, some of you need a little help understanding that some of the things seem to be just like, there's nothing the GM can do about how many roster spots he's allowed. It's the exact same for every single club. Okay? And there's also the mental aspect. So an AHLer might be physically capable and kind of like, right, but there's a mental aspect. And here's what I can say is that every young person, just in general, it applies to the National Hockey League too, but just in general, okay, the better you get to know yourself, okay, right, the better you will have. It won't be so difficult. Things that could be will not be as difficult, because you understand, you start to learn how you react, and you start to and at a certain point it's just say, oh, well, I'm just right, I'm just beating down myself and giving myself too much of a hard time. It's like, there's expectations, you understand? And trust me when I tell you, I don't care what anyone else says, but there are people who know NHL goaltending like I do, okay, and they know some of the reasons why you get a guy up from the AHL, okay, that guy is not going to play like an NHL veteran. I don't give a shit who it is. I don't give a shit how great they are. That's on-the-job training, people. Okay? And we did get Buffalo's first-round pick. And, some of the same people were all excited. Oh, it's on Shites in case we got all that. You guys didn't even wait till the end of November. You guys just tanked your fucking team like, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, could you wait until at least January to do that? And don't give up on your team 5 minutes into the second fucking period. Alright? Like, some of it's how you are responding and reacting. Some of it's things that some of you don't know, and maybe getting frustrated, but it's the same for every franchise. So take a deep breath and maybe start becoming a student of the NHL. Because it's just, you'll start to understand things a little better, and you'll start to understand why certain things, because, I know Nyquist, blah, blah. That's why I kept rooting Hattie for Nyquist. Besides the goal scoring, that was a veteran presence who doesn't get rattled or shaken or panic. Knows positioning. Okay? Knows where he needs to be, when he needs to. He plays well away from the puck, and he plays pretty well with the puck. Kenny Rennie, I know. I love the Kenny Rennie show. But Sean Reynolds said something, is like, maybe, you guys can handle the National Hockey League. And from everything I've seen and heard, I have to agree with Sean Reynolds on that. And, if you know yourself really well, and let's just say I'm a goalie, because I'm the goalie, I'm of the goalie kind, the goalie ilk. Let's just say, right, if I were on, NHL Blue Paint, and I play a game, and, these things, one went in, and, maybe, my team loses, 5-3, whatever, and somebody asked me, because I would know my game and know myself and how well I was prepared and what my actual good game is. Yes, I understand why Connor Hellebuyck would say clearly, well, I mean, I had a decent game. I didn't really, I was, perfectly concentrated, and I, could see the puck, I reacted well, my positioning was good. Hey, I'm wondering if there are some people who are very, very talkative and get online and very active in talking about the Winnipeg Jets. NHL's like, are you trying to tear down the franchise? Are you, like, did someone hurt you? Are you guys, like, in debt from gambling? Are you depressed? Like, what the hell, people? Get to know yourselves really well. Understand how you react to things. And the better you know the game, and the better you know about, like, the NHL in general, and then, the Jets in general, the more optimistic you will become. Okay? I don't give a shit anybody calls me delusional or whatever. I'm like, I just know better. Well, I was right about quite a few things, particularly the Colorado Avalanche. I don't think the Jets team and room were afraid of the Colorado Avalanche, because a bunch of AHLers would definitely not have been able, to beat the Colorado Avalanche twice regular season. It was at least twice. I don't always remember exactly. Okay? Like, some of you need to let go of some stuff. You also need to know that, that's not the only team out there. You're all looking at it like they're the only team out there, and that the other team just never factors. And that's some bullshit. And you guys really should, some of you, especially if you get paid, right, you should be educating viewers and listeners, instead of trying to tear them down and, demand, and I want this and I want that. It's just like, who gives a fuck? You understand? Okay? The other team always factors in some way. Okay? They're not the out there all by themselves. But you guys judge them and you rate them like, oh, they have control over every single fucking thing that happens on ice. And that's some bullshit. And maybe some disgruntled fans, okay, will have a better fandom if they stop doing crap like that and understand exactly how NHL ice hockey really is. I've been at this for, like 45 years. They're human beings. Little stupid stuff can affect their game sometimes that you don't know anything about. Like, some of you need to quit beating down that team. It's just true. We have KFC, we have Stripes. Josh Morrissey is one of the best defensemen in the NHL today. In today's NHL, Josh Morrissey ranks high. Now, if y'all want to be sad and miserable and, make bets, lose money, if you guys want to, give up on your freaking team 5 minutes into the second period or in November, okay, but you can't force that on me. And you can't force that on the players. And you can't force that on management. Yeah, okay, go Jets.